Hi there, guys. My name's Phil Akers. I'm senior coach at the Belfry. Joined today with Dr. Daniel Adams, who's fantastic coach, coached at many majors, got tour players, and is a specialist in elite performance. That's what he's done his doctorate in. So really privileged to have him here today with us to talk a lot about the mental game. So Dan's done an awful lot of work into the psychology of golf. Not just golf, just into psychology in general as well. And it's a part of the game that I absolutely love talking about, love learning about, love reading about. And Dan's I was fortunate enough to have a little look. Dan sort of written a book and had a little look through that a couple of months ago, and definitely sparked some good questions that I've had sort of going through my mind over the last couple of months and that, and be great to chat through it all today. And Dan, sort of give us a bit of a background into your learning within golf psychology, what your experiences are, and maybe how they differ to the mainstream, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like most, my typical background started more from what would be termed as a Western psychology perspective, very much trying to challenge your thoughts and change them and change the content of your thinking, very much kind of NLP-ish. Then, as a natural inquisitive person, my focus and attention went to the other side of the spectrum, much more Eastern perspective. And actually, that's going to be largely the side I'm going to try to present in this session, because I think it would be very much different to what a lot of people may have heard of previously.
Okay, cool. So what do you see as sort of that NLP approach and stuff like that? Why don't you give sort of like some of the viewers, maybe they're sort of like mid-handicap golfers and stuff like that, why don't you give them some sort of examples of what that traditional or Eastern sort of or Western, sort of thinking might have been commonly then?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll start it off with one of the key areas that I wanted to look at, which would be confidence, for example. So maybe from an NLP perspective, if you were lacking in confidence, they would have you try to simulate and replicate those who do have confidence, and change your body stature. How would someone who is thinking in a confident way think? And they'd have you try to change the content of your thoughts. Mm-hmm. This is what we're going to talk about. Is going to be a totally different approach. So ultimately, it's about challenging, from a Western perspective, trying to challenge or change the content of your thinking.
So that's sort of more reacting to it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, they're kind of looking at, what's the content of your thoughts? I think, I'm a rubbish golfer. I'm a this, I'm a that. That might be some of the content, the literal thoughts in your head. Mm-hmm. So that approach would be, okay, well, how would you change that? If you were confident, what would you say to yourself? Well, I'd say I'm brilliant. I'm this. So they're trying to get you to change the content, maybe from a negative to a more positive. But what we're going to look at, hopefully, is a slightly different approach.
Okay, cool. So what is that different approach then? Why, and what sort of led you down that path as well?
Yeah, well, I think like I say, first of all, because I'm naturally inquisitive with regardless, and as a performance coach, I really ought to have a very broad perspective from both sides of the story, not just exclusively looking at it from this one.
Isn't it? Understand both sides of the argument.
Absolutely, because it kind of. I remember there was a famous coach. I don't really want to give his name away, but he said, whatever you're into, always go and look at the complete opposite. Look at the thing that you disagree with, because it's either going to help further affirm what you do agree with, or it's going to open your eyes to something. And that's something that I've found, regardless of what discipline, whether it's been biomechanics, skill acquisition, the mental game. If I'm in this camp, right, I want to go to the complete end of the spectrum now and have a look at what they're saying, just to affirm this, or make me realize, maybe actually there's an alternative way. And when I had this alternative approach, I felt like this was more effective, more of the real deal. Mm-hmm. And I've had more results and success with my players in this approach. So,
and has that changed over sort of your coaching career over the last, say, sort of 5 years or something? Have you gone from, say, like a more Western to a more Eastern view with it? Is that regular? Like, is that
largely, I would. It's very, just because I see my perception of this perspective is truer and more effective, as opposed to the alternative way, which I feel is a little bit plasticky, if that's a word. It's a little bit artificial. It's a little bit, okay, it sounds good, and you might get some results with certain people, but I don't feel as if they're really getting to the core root of the issue. So we're not so much trying to change in an Eastern perspective, we're not trying to change the content of your thoughts. We're trying to change your relationship to it, how you relate to it.
Okay, cool. So why don't you give us some examples then of what what your sort of Eastern style of is then?
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start off with confidence, for example. It's something that a lot of golfers want. We say, like, I want to be confident because obviously when I'm confident, I play my best. And, we have the rule or the idea about, well, if I don't feel confident, I'm clearly not going to play my best. I'm not going to play good golf. So straight away, let's just put it on the table and let's just question that. Let's just look at it. And have you had moments where you've felt so down on your game, so fed up with it, to the point where you literally say, oh, I give up. And then the very next shot you hit is one of the best shots you've ever played.
Oh, so it's typical back nine of a golfer, isn't it?
There you go. Absolutely. Or like a match play. As soon as you get beat, give up. Or as soon as you NR, no return, I give up. Rip my card up. The next shot you hit, you carry on playing great from there. So you can play great golf from an emotional state that is very, very low, lacking confidence. And actually the reverse, have the golfers and the viewers had experiences where you've been playing great, you're full of confidence, you cannot wait to get to the course, and then you go and play poorly.
Absolutely. Everyone's had a great warm-up session, right? And then
that exactly. So what we're trying to do here is straight away is I'm trying to suggest that the link to how you feel and how you perform is not as strong as what you might believe. And actually, by holding it as a very strong belief that I have to feel good in order to play good, well, when you don't feel good, you notice it and you start to panic more. And that's what happens with a lot of my players, especially on talks. They're playing for their lives. When they are not feeling confident, I don't feel they panic and freak out even more because they don't feel confident. So what I started to do with them is, and I'd suggest this for the viewers, is to start recording moments where you did not feel great, you did not feel confident, but actually performed well. It might only be a shot. It's great. It's still evidence. It might be an entire round. I'll give you a perfect example of probably the round of my life personally as a player was SNA. I was playing in the local alliance, so a load of professionals around. Went to the practice area, and I literally shanked every ball. Literally top shank, and I was like, this is going to be a great day. First hole is a par 3, about 210 yards, and I think I had about 30 professionals watching me, and I was like, great, this is not going to go well. On the first hole, bang, hole in one. Next hole's a par 5. I think I eagled that, so I was 4 under after 2. After 9 holes, I think I was like 6, 7 under, and then it kind of went downhill from there. But we won't focus on that part. But a couple of free putts in there, couldn't hold the club. But the point is I was still able, despite the initial period before the round feeling absolutely lacking in confidence whatsoever. I was literally expecting to shank it on the first tee and be the laughing stock.
Yeah.
Shot of my life. Actually, as I hit it, I was saying to myself, that is way through the back because I have nailed that. And I took the wrong club as well. I was meant to take 4 iron. I took 3 iron. I absolutely nailed it. And I was like, that's way well through the. No, it's gone in. I was like, okay. So there's a great example. Now that's what I'd ask all the viewers to start noting moments where they don't feel great but perform well, and actually moments where they feel good but actually don't, because we can start to normalize the fact that actually it's okay to feel not confident, and actually you can still perform great. You can still perform well from that place. Like DJ just won the Masters, and he said the entire round he was nervous.
Yeah.
He's the best player in the world, nervous, but he still won, still played well.
I think that probably gets to that expectations bit, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like you're going into something saying, well, I'm going to do good or I'm going to do bad sort of thing, rather than actually just controlling the controllables, like that shot there and then, like try to not have expectations. Easier said than done, right? But it's that, okay, well, what does this skill need? And then put the things into place to achieve that. And whether it's good or whether it's bad isn't sort of actually, like the outcome of it isn't necessarily our focus point. It's the bits in between that we can actually control, which hopefully lead to a positive.
That's a great point there. What you mentioned about expectations. Well, let's look at what is an expectation. It's an idea about the future. So ultimately, what's an idea? What is a thought? Like, we're going quite deep into it here, but what is thinking? What is a thought? It's an idea. It's an abstract. It's an illusion. So when I picture myself playing well, it's thinking is no different to dreaming. And when we wake up, we know a dream is just a dream. There's nothing really to take to it or take from it. We know it's made up. It's illusionary. Well, it's the same as thinking. When I have that expectation of myself playing well, it's just an idea. It's just a thought, and that thought itself is not necessarily going to help me in the now anyway. In fact, it's probably going to deter me from it because my focus is not on the process, on my intent. Not in the present moment. My focus is not here and now. It's in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a hard thing, though, right? It's easy to say, sort of, stay in the moment. Let's not create expectations and that. But you know what? Rory McIlroy coming down the final back nine of the Masters and stuff. Like,
yeah,
you naturally let that mind wander, right?
It does.
And I suppose that big picture part of it becomes very important, right? Like, we can have these little bits in the here and now, try and control the controllables. I know that my heart rate's pounding. I know that my breathing's quicker. So I'm going to start to take deeper, slower breaths. I'm going to slow everything down, walk a little bit slower and stuff like that. But the big picture bit effectively manages a lot of that, right? So there's that. I don't know if you ever sort of like knew Jonathan Edwards was very religious back in the day, wasn't he?
Okay. Yeah.
And he would like have a jump on Sundays and things like that. And he said sort of like having that belief that there was something bigger, something more important than, say, like the Olympics to him, sort of actually helps him control them emotions and his emotional arousal levels, his physiological arousal levels and stuff like that. And it's like, some people, golf is the be all and end all. And for them people, that one shot defines whether they've got a good life or a bad life and stuff like that. And for them people, surely them arousal levels are so high. It's so much more weighted on that.
100%. Now that leads us perfectly to fear and anxiety, and absolutely what you mentioned there, particularly for those golfers who are playing for their livelihood. That arousal and adrenaline rush is so high. Now, again, we're not going to, from my perspective, we're not going to try and fight that, challenge it, stop it. We're going to change our relationship to it. First of all, we spoke about it and how to practice effectively. We're going to encourage and bring on the physical arousal sensations. We're not going to try and avoid them. We're going to go to them. And secondly, I'd like to make the point, why do we get this adrenaline release anyway? Why do we have this, intense heart rate and, arms and legs like jelly? Why do we get that? Well, relate it back to, fight and flight. When we were cavemen, it was to fight harder or to run faster, to jump quicker, to move quicker. So this adrenaline release is actually a way for you to physically perform better, stronger, move quicker, hit the ball harder. So actually, it is your brain, because you're telling yourself, I want to perform well physically. So your brain's going, well, I'll give you a load of adrenaline because that's going to help you perform physically higher, better. Now, part of our brain then is trying to fight that and go, oh, I don't want it. That's like, well, hang on. You're fighting a part of you that is trying to really help you. And it's actually probably the strongest part of you. The release comes from the amygdala, the reptilian part of the brain. It's an automated response. And it's probably the strongest, oldest part of the brain as well. So we can't fight it, But if we change our relationship to it, as opposed to, I don't want this, I need to fight, to actually, this adrenaline release is going to help me perform better. Like Usain Bolt, breaking world records, he's doing that in the stadium of the Olympics because his adrenaline is higher. He's not doing that at the comfort of his own home. So he's looking at that adrenaline release as a positive enhancing thing to help him physically perform better. So he's not changed it. He's not fought it. He's not tried to fight it off. He's changed his relationship and how he links and associates to it.
Yeah, how he frame it. And Ben, one of my players, great guy, and he sort of suggests that it's a privilege to feel adrenaline and to feel nervous and stuff like that. So that's how he sort of frames it. That actually, so like that's great. Like that's what everything was for, right? All of them thousands of golf balls that he's been pounding and practicing and chipping and putting, like that's what it's for, to feel nervous. Like if he didn't feel nervous, like what's the point?
Well,
like,
if he doesn't feel nervous, he's not wanting to perform well.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, is like when you get that adrenaline release, it's because you want to physically perform at a level that you don't normally do. So your brain releases that chemical release to help you physically enhance what you can do. But then if there's the part of your story saying, oh no, I need to fight this, I don't want it, well, you're fighting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, it is you who's releasing this adrenaline. So one part of you is releasing and one part of you is trying to fight it. It's like you're in such an internal fight for something that's actually really there to save you well.
I think I just saw it behind you. I don't know if that was the Chimp Paradox book that was just behind there. Whatever. And that sort of explains that quite nicely. I really recommended reading that sort of like explains, almost sort of simplifies that it's almost two parts of your brain, almost like this logical side of it, and then you've got this sort of
animalistic,
reptilian sort of chimp in there or whatever. And it's like it's how we manage that and how we cope with it. And you've got hotheads, you've got people that are very logical, and it's just understanding how we cope with that, right? Where's your optimal? Where's your optimal to play your best golf in? And you know what? For Ian Poulter, it might be that his optimal is more up there.
Yeah.
Whereas actually for Sergio Garcia, when he sort of gets up there in major championships, his performance level maybe
starts to dip.
How does he keep that low? It's not saying that Ian Poulter's a better golfer or anything like that. It's just like, what's their optimal? How do you get into that state of arousal?
Absolutely.
That's right for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of comes back to relating to how do we practice. It's helping you train yourself to put you in that emotional state, in that environment that we know is right for you, effective for you.
Yeah.
So that kind of like then leads us on to maybe one of the other components, negative thoughts. So that is something that a lot of golfers, kind of struggle with. They often say, well, I've got so many negative thoughts in my head. That's why I'm playing poorly.
Well, that first shot, if they hit a bad shot, that's them done for the rest of the round, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. They beat themselves up. They're talking it over. They're saying, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. Kind of leading a bit more towards the confident side of the game. But I would ask the golfer, well, what is a thought? So when you have that sound in your head, if I ask I ask the viewers now, picture a monkey. You can picture the monkey. Is the monkey actually there? No. It's an abstract. It's an illusion. It feels very real. Now, make the sound of a monkey. If you can hear it. Is there an actual sound in your head? No, it's an illusion. Even the very self talking to yourself. You can hear your own voice talking to yourself and giving yourself as much stick as you want, but there's no actual sound there. So it's like the monkey saying something bad to you. It's like, well, there's no actual monkey in there. This is all an illusion that is like playing over. And
so how do we control that then?
Well, for me, the control is by seeing it for what it is, not fighting it, not changing it, or being aware. So yeah, it is there. The illusion 100% is there. It's a real illusion, but there's no truth to it. Almost, it's not actually. There's no actual sound there. You are creating that conscious experience within you. So, for example, something very physical golfers can do right now is literally stand up, and I want you to walk around the room while saying to yourself, I can't walk, I can't walk, I can't walk. I'm really bad at walking as you're walking. And it proves that actually, well, I can have these negative thoughts run and still, hopefully no one's going to fall in.
Yeah, that's falling down.
Yeah, exactly. So then relate that to golf. What I do with a lot of golfers is, I've got loads of negative thoughts when I'm over the putt. Okay, get on the practice area. And I literally want you, don't try and avoid have negative thoughts. Bring them on, entice them on. Stand over 4 foot, 4 foot, 5 footers, and have the intent to hold the putt.
Yeah.
Or say to yourself, I am rubbish at putting. I can't hold a thing as you're holding putts.
Yeah.
Like it will again break the link between you don't need to feel good in order to perform well. You don't need to think.
Almost that there is no, almost bit Matrix, like there is no
paradox,
no spoon, as it were. There are no good thoughts. There are no bad thoughts. There are
just thought. Exactly, and it's a very paradoxical. Well, it's a paradoxical intervention. It's by enticing the anxiety, by enticing the negative thoughts, they don't have such an impact. It's when we're trying to avoid them, they have one hell of an impact. So
can link them to positive outcomes, right? That's the big thing that will gel, that can change your mindset with it. If you know that you can hold putts when you're thinking negatively, it's like, all right, well, it's not a bad thing for me to think negatively. Then.
It's the evidence. Yeah, it goes back to when I mentioned about, take evidence of when you felt bad but played well. There's your evidence. There's no stronger evidence than your own evidence. There's no point me saying, oh yeah, and you go, yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. It's that's how we learn. It's through our own experience. So get on the practice here, or get on the range, or get on the putting green, and with the intent of obviously hitting a good shot. I can't hit the fairway. I can't hit the fairway. As you pull the trigger, bang, and you've hit the fairway. Oh, okay. So it's okay to have the thought. See it for what it is. It is largely an illusion. It's really there, but maybe it doesn't have as much of an effect as what we make ourselves believe it does.
I think a nice example of that is a little bit like if I was to go out and play like Tiger Woods, right?
Yeah.
I would be running around, hopping, skipping, clicking my heels together because I've just shot 68 or something. But he comes off and he looks like someone's missed on his parade, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's how he's framing it compared to how I'd frame it, sort of thing. And it's like, you know what? So like everyone's experiences are so individual and that, and it's just about
you're dead right there. It comes from every single conscious experience is totally created within you individually. This might get a little bit philosophical, but if you take the experience of the taste of garlic bread, for example.
the golf lesson, by the way, guys.
I did say it was a little bit philosophical and a little bit out there, but if you take that unique experience, that sensation, that is created by you, not the actual garlic bread. And that's why some people might like the taste of it and some people won't. Exactly as you've just mentioned, you might shoot a particular score, you're really happy and you love it. Tiger Woods doesn't. It's the same stimuli. It has not changed, but it is your brain.
Yeah.
It is you who is creating that experience, whether consciously or unconsciously, but it's ultimately coming from you. And that's exactly what you mentioned there about you can have the same score, but one guy sees it great, one guy sees it not so great.
Yeah, absolutely. So then a big part of this is sort of in between shots that I think gets neglected because you've got so much time out on a golf course. It might be like, let's say 4.5, 5 hours or whatever. Yeah. And the actual hitting golf ball side of it maybe only takes like 10 to 15 minutes, something like that. I think it was like 11 minutes peak Cowan said. So you've got so much time to think.
Yep.
Beat yourself up for 5 hours, talk yourself up for 5 hours and stuff like that. I mean, where should golfers' minds be at in between shots?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say, as always, it's relevant and individual. Some golfers may, in between shots, need to be thinking about a particular technical feel to help them with the next shot. May. Not everybody, but some may. If a golfer really feels like I'm overthinking in between shots, I need to stop it. Well, you can't stop thinking by using more thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You like right now, sit there for a couple of seconds and try not to think about anything. It's like it's impossible. It is a
right?
Yeah, it's a constant flow. And like I say, I think, scientists are now saying, the average human has over 60,000 thoughts a day. So you can't turn your brain off. You can't
particularly understand how many golfers have on a golf course there, wouldn't it?
Oh, say that again. Absolutely. Exactly. Absolutely. It's so the golden rule is you can't use thought to stop thought.
Mm-hmm.
But we can use awareness. Say that again.
What can you use then?
So we can use awareness, pure observation, which is different to analysis. So if I was to say we've got observation and analysis, the ability just to purely observe and to just to watch, or listen, not analytically describe, opinionate, good, bad, funny, whatever. So let's give you an example. All emotions appear to dissolve when we have an awareness of it. So if you take anger, for example, in the moment you are angry, you're frustrated, you have an outburst, you react. It's not until you become aware of how you are feeling does that start to dissolve and dip.
Yeah.
When you have a lack of awareness, it's through the roof, and then you're aware of it.
And that awareness doesn't necessarily need to come from yourself, right, as well. That can come from reading, what's it called, Shoe Dog at the moment, the story. And the Phil Knight was saying sort of like he was down in this deep, dark funk. He had like a $25 million court case against him and stuff. And he said he kept smashing his phone, and it was the third phone that he'd been through in 2 weeks. And the phone guy came out and was like, this isn't normal behavior. Like, you're meant to be an adult. And he said that was what sort of switched him out of it. It was something else that done it. And it's quite hard when it's just you in your own head to do that, right, sometimes. But out on the golf course, we don't all have caddies to help us.
No.
So sometimes you've got to be very aware of it yourself.
Absolutely. You're dead right. And by right, we do live in autopilot mode. Mm-hmm. A lot of our reactions are predetermined, in truth, by our experiences and our conditioning. So how we react, what we think is good, bad, funny, exciting, boring.
Yeah.
Predetermined by our past conditioning. And we do largely run in autopilot mode. Take the example when you drive your car. We've all had that experience when you drive your car and you get there and go, who's been driving the car? Well, we largely live in autopilot mode, and we kind of need to, because your brain would explode. You can't be consciously aware of every moment of the day. But when there's awareness, there's less of a reaction.
Yeah, I like that.
There was a very high level golfer out in America who got in touch with me, and he was about to lose his tour card. He'd been suspended off the tour. He'd been fined because of his outbursts. Angry, banging, and swearing, and everything. And he literally said, "I can't stop reacting to the situation." And I said, "Well, do you react to something that you're aware of, or do you react to something that you're not aware of?" So, for example, if I come up behind you and go, boo, you react because you're not aware and you jump. Yeah. I do the very same thing by walking directly up to you as you're aware of me, and I go, boo. There's no reaction because you're aware. So we worked on him in particular, for this specific example, after he's hit the shot, his attention's not over then. As soon as he's hit that shot, I want his attention on himself. Okay. Watching, observe, not trying to control it, not even trying to suppress it. Doesn't even need to. Doesn't need to fight it and hold it back. Just watch, hit the shot, and have the observation on the self. Mm-hmm. So the natural movements of thought and the reaction, well, the build-up of emotion. In that observation, then he has the intelligence to act then, not the reaction. He's using his own conscious, right, I'm going to now decide whether I want to throw my club down the fairway and get another fine, or I'm going to decide to just let it go, or just watch it. And by watching it itself, it dissolves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that being self-aware and knowing what the what your precursors are to it, sort of thing, just being able to be like, you know what, that's not normal behavior. That's not where I play my best golf from, or this is, and then being able to say, this is where I play my best golf from.
Absolutely.
Whether it is that you play your best golf from when you do sling your club down the
Mm.
because you've got angry, you've got that frustration and that anger out of you, and you've dealt with it through that way, or actually that it's through the case of actually that makes me play worse. So,
Absolutely, exactly. It comes down to finding out what's best for you. Ultimately, that's the key thing. And like I say, that awareness impacts not just what we might term negative emotions, even positive. Like I'm sure there's loads of times, I'm sure people will relate to this, where you've been having a really, really good time, really enjoying yourself, and then you become aware that you're having such a good time. And as soon as you're aware, you're not having as good of a time. It comes to the awareness.
Yeah,
now,
you shoot the par, and then you're like, Jesus, I'm 2 shots under par, right?
Absolutely. And then as soon as you become aware in that moment, it has a reverse effect.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, like for me, that's a big one, especially when people have good scores on the
Mm-hmm.
on the card, going into the back nine, that you're 3 shots under your handicap. I know that you're beating your buddies and stuff like that. It's so easy to get distracted and start focusing on that rather than doing the stuff that you was doing in the first place to get you into that and trusting that same sort of routine. But I think that mindset of understanding sort of like that just because you're thinking about it doesn't mean that it's going to happen, doesn't mean that it's a good or a bad thing. And when you are practicing, experience it from a good mental side, experience it from a bad mental side. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, I know how to switch to my most optimal one. Like, how do I switch from being down in the dumps to being on my A game and clicking my heels, sort of thing?
Absolutely, you're dead right there. I think you could almost divide thought into 2 categories: technological thought, as in if I need to think of particular processes to hit this shot, and if you don't think of it, guess what? You're probably not going to do it. And that more illusionary thought, where it really is more of an abstract, and it's not going to make there's no real action from it.
Yeah.
For example, if it's going to rain tomorrow, I could sit here right now and worry and stress. Oh, I hope it doesn't rain. I hope it doesn't rain. That thought in itself is pointless. Me thinking about, I hope it doesn't rain, is not going to change anything to do with whether it's going to rain or not.
Yeah.
This is maybe more of a technological / action thought would be, if it rains tomorrow, I need my waterproofs and umbrella. Now there's an action that can make a difference. But that worry, that anxiety and that worry and frustration of, I hope it doesn't rain, I hope it doesn't rain. I could think about that once or a million times. It's not going to make a difference to whether it rains or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a film, Bridge of Spies, and I think he's going to be on death row or something. And it's just like, you don't appear worried. It's like, would it help?
That's the point. That's the point. Exactly. We think worry and stress appears as if it helps. It presents itself as if, well, the more you worry about it, the more it's going to make a difference. It doesn't make any difference. So do it as much or as little as you want. The outcome is still the same. But the trick is comprehending that and being aware of that. When you're not aware of it, you are sucked into the contents of the thought, and you worry and worry and worry and think it's going to help.
Yeah.
You can diffuse and detach yourself from it and observe it and see it for what it actually is. An illusion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of warriors will sort of that'll strike a chord with them, especially hopefully. With so much time on your hands at the moment, like there's all of this stuff about mental health and that, and you know what, like for me, like I'm not working for 6 weeks at the moment, and you've got your mind can run wild with all the things that can go wrong and stuff like that. But actually, like, how can we take action to make sure that the things that you want to happen are going to happen, right?
Absolutely. I think that's the key thing is using your intelligence, not your, we'll call it imagination. You know, like I say, you could sit here right now and create endless potential outcomes. But right now, in the here and now, which is all we ever, it's the time frame that we are always only ever in.
Yeah.
The here and now, we are perfectly fine. But when your mind goes into the future, it creates the idea of whatever you fear.
And what about the past then as well? Because it's out the golf course, really easy to stay stuck in that as well. Like jump to, right, if I par the next 3 holes in, I'm going to win the monthly medal. Jesus, I've topped my last 2 shots. like I'm rubbish at golf sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Okay. So we'll take that literal example there where, okay, you've just topped the last 2 shots. Well, for me, it's not bad to reflect on the past because there's some important information there that you might need. I topped the last 2 shots because I bent my elbows on the fault. I need to feel like my arms are straight. That would be a technological, helpful thought that might help me hit a better shot. But the added part where you said, "Oh, I'm rubbish at golf," well, that is like, "Oh, I hope it doesn't rain."
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
that's not changing anything. It's like who you are has not actually changed at all in that moment from hitting that one shot to the next anyway. So
And
it's
that's like the chimp paradox bit, right? There's that emotional side of it, and then there's the logical side of it. It's like, what can I do to actually control or stop that happening again?
yeah,
And then this other bit where your mind's just running wild and it sort of hijacks you, right?
absolutely. That's the reaction. That's the chimp's reaction.
Yeah.
That's the emotional response, which is largely it's the past's response to the now.
Yeah.
You have an idea about the future, and that's where all the frustration comes from, obviously, because you have an idea, you have an image of what you'd like, the expectations again. You have an idea of what you would like the future to be like, and when the now does not meet up to that, that's when frustration sets in.
Okay, so right, very quickly, I know that
Yeah.
we've rambled on and gone quite deep into this. And what would a routine look like for you if you were starting with a blank canvas? Like someone turns up to their golf shop, hasn't had good thoughts, hasn't had bad thoughts, anything like that. What does a routine do?
So, like, as in a pre-shot routine to shot, yeah, absolutely. So, ultimately, it's about placing your attention on the relevant cues. And this is actually comes back to what we spoke about in the first video about skill and technique. There's a reason why someone might pick up some grass and throw it in the air. There's a reason why someone might bring out the yardage book. They're not doing it because it's a particular technique or Rory McIlroy does it. They're doing it because there are relevant informational cues that they need. They need to assess the wind direction. They need to assess the lie. They need to assess the yardage.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to assess whatever dangers may be out in front of them. So for myself, it would be something similar to that. Check the lie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sitting down, it's sitting up. It's if it's sitting down, we're probably going to need some more loft here. Or already that's okay. That I may not be going for the green here because there's water at the front, and if it's in a bad lie, the chances are I'm not going to do it. It's already preempting it. Okay, where's the wind? Okay, the wind's into my face now, right? Okay, what's the yardage? Okay, put them together. Now, okay, what club am I in?
Information, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah, we're taking relevant, important information that will make a difference. We're not copying a technique, similar to like in the first video, for the sake of throwing the grass up because I've seen Tiger Woods do it. It looks good.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
And what do you see with normal golfers at that point when they're taking information in that maybe isn't relevant?
Well, exactly. Their focus is on the things, like say, are not relevant. So someone's watching me. Oh, I can hear someone clattering their clubs behind me. Mm-hmm. Those distractional things that aren't really like the more elite golfer is so sucked into the process that's going to make a difference. They're not even aware of the golfer or the people talking or the person watching because they are so zoned in on the process and the intention of the shot and focus on meaningful cues, not on just, oh, I hope it doesn't rain. That's not going to make a difference. If it does rain, this.
Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? If you can create that mindset where like you're taking into account all of the relevant information that's going to help you achieve that outcome that you want to achieve, right?
Yeah.
Then what's that next stage of it? Like what do you do after you've got that information?
Well, so then you start building it within your practice swings. So you've got your information. Take our example. Okay, I'm going to have to go with a club with more loft, sitting down. So already it's in thick rough. That's telling me, right, I need to probably hit this a little bit harder. Maybe not swing as long, shorter swing, but really get down and get into the back of the ball. So now I'm taking all this information in, feeding it into a practice swing or a couple of practice swings. And I would say there's no golden rule on that. Don't do one, don't do two, do whatever is relevant. Mm-hmm. I hear a lot of people say, oh, you need to keep the time frame of practice swings the same. Well, if I make a practice swing and I take a huge divot, I make a really bad practice swing, what, you're telling me now I've got to go and hit the ball straight after it? No way. Chances are I'm probably going to hit a bad shot.
It's self-timed, right? Like you can
absolutely do what is relevant in the appropriate moments.
Yeah.
Sometimes you may make one practice swing and it's brilliant. You go, oh, that was a great feel. I'm going to go with that. Yeah. Sometimes you make a horrendous practice swing. Take some more.
And look, I think one of the big things that happens when people perceive it as like a pressure situation, let's say that it's an England competition and someone's standing on the first tee, and that they often, I think, sort of their mind wanders, or they'll take a lot longer. They'll give it a lot more attention, and they'll start to place much more emphasis on it because it's a competition or whatever. Okay. It's like, okay, well, I've got to think about it so much more than what I normally do, right?
Absolutely. So in that moment, I'd say they're doing it not for the sake of it, but they're not doing it for a relevant reason. I would say in that moment, if you're playing in an England event and you can feel the pressure, well, we should have done a lot of work in the practice elements where you are totally comfortable in that pressure. And that's kind of, we're not trying to avoid the pressure and get rid of the anxiety. We want you to feel comfortable in it. The only way we can do that is by putting you in it as often as possible.
Yeah.
So you may need to take a bit longer in an extra practice swing or two because the first one was really, really bad. You know, you fatted, took a big chunky divot. Well, yeah, you need to make 2 more practice swings. Yeah. But don't do it just for the sake of it because someone's watching. Oh, I think it's the thing to do. I best.
Yeah, what Rory does.
Yeah, exactly. Rory that takes his time so than I should. Well, some players don't. Some people go straight into it. It's about figuring out what's right for you. And the only way we do that is by doing it, trial and erroring it, and saying, "Look, this is for you."
There was a study. One of my old lecturers at university, Matt Bridge, he looked into it. The time of people's routines out on tour.
Yeah,
and it's funny, sort of like. People that had a quicker routine earned more money out on tour than people that had a slower routine. And and I mean, like, that's not to say that all people that have slow routines are going to play bad and stuff, but that was just how sort of like the norm was. And people then, when they got out of their routine and they took much longer, they were the ones that really dropped down on the money list, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, and that in itself, so that study is really, really good. And does it take into account to how people practice? Going back to, well, people usually practice shot after shot after shot. If you disrupt that time space, you know, where you get people waiting around, well, now I'm taking longer. It's disrupted my flow. Chances I'm going to play poorly.
Yeah.
Because they're just not used to it. That's kind of the key point. Is it's making you it's getting you used to and comfortable and conditioned to that relevant environmental.
Slow, playing fast, feeling pressure, not feeling pressure, and having positive experiences probably with all of them, right? So then you're like, right, well, I've got experience with all of this.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a difference between, when we talk about confidence, that's an evidence in confidence, not an idea, a feel.
Yeah.
You see it, you're
not kidding yourself.
Yeah, it's not an illusion. It's not, oh, I've got to think positively. That's an illusion, and you're wasting that much time on trying to trick yourself into feeling good. You're not focusing on your left arm position, which if you do, you'll probably hit a good shot. And the feeling of confidence is an after effect of the shot anyway. You don't get confident first. You hit a good shot or you win the event, and then you feel confident. I always say it's like the fireworks going off at a celebration. You don't set the fireworks off before you win the event. The fireworks go off after you've won the event. It's an after effect, not something you do beforehand. Cool.
Is there anything more that you would like to go into? Anything that you think that we skipped out on that? I know that's
I think we've covered a good chunk there. I would just stress that awareness is key, is essential. It stops that automated response, whether it's negative thoughts or anxious thoughts. It's the ability to suspend your thoughts and observe them.
Yeah.
So if you are thinking negatively, look at it and realize that it's okay to think negative thoughts. I can still perform well from here.
Yeah.
And it's the same with fear. It's the same with anger. It's that observation. It's that awareness. That's what ultimately makes us human, to be aware that we are aware and not just act from an animalistic, reactionary way.
Yeah. Love that. Dan, thanks very much for your time. Hope you've enjoyed it, guys. And see you next time. Thanks very much.